A ray of hope appears to be in sight for residents of Fort Worth's South Side. Area representatives have been petitioning the City Council since June, asking for inclusion in the 1970-72 Capital Improvements Program. The citizens are asking that a sewer drainage system that was part of a 1936 bond issue be repaired. Monday's petition of signatures of over 900 area residents prompted City Manager Howard McMahon and City Engineer Jack Graham to inspect the area. The South Side community is asking that the city improve the storm drainage at Illinois and Rosedale Streets and construct a relief line in Rosedale Street between the South Freeway and Evans. I talked to the chairman of the South Side Improvement Committee, Y.C. Chambly, about the deplorable situation that has plagued the area for over 30 years. And what are you asking specifically for the city to do? You want them to stop the flow of water in this area completely?
I want them to enclose it, Tom. They want to concrete it, but I want them to enclose it because of the hazard. As you see now, dead cats, watermelon rinds, beer cans, oil cans, and all kind of debris is put into this.
Is this area ever dry, Mr. Chambly?
Seldom, no.
And what about during the winters? Does it ever overflow?
Yes, it does. It overflows in the winter, and in the 1200 block at Oleander, where the water come up in people's backyard, even to the street.
Does this cause the residents of the area to evacuate during this time?
It doesn't get high enough for them to evacuate, but the houses are high. If they were low, they would have to evacuate.
The City Council will act on this and other proposed additions to the 70-72 Capital Improvements Program on Monday. If approved, the estimated cost will be around $240,000 for the South Side area. Cochise Cash, Channel 8 News, on the move, Fort Worth.
And then you will not go at all?
No, I don't. I don't expect the privilege of speaking my full mind either. But unless I'm given a reasonable hearing, I would not attempt to try to say some things that need to be said and to discuss things that need to be discussed in a mere 10 minutes.
This is a reward notice. It's a rather different reward notice. It appeared in newspapers in Carrollton and Farmers Branch today, and it means just what it says. A group of businessmen there are offering awards for information leading to the arrest and conviction of drug pushers in their community. The businessmen want to remain anonymous for obvious reasons, even the man who started it all.
Inform freely, with the understanding that we're not going to use the evidence against them. It's merely going to be relayed to the proper authorities so that they can act.
How do they actually get in touch with you?
They get in touch with us by phoning the phone number that is listed in the ad that you have shown previously in this announcement. And the party that answers the phone will not be a law enforcement officer. It is merely an interested citizen.
A lot of means and methods have been employed over the years to rid society of the drug pusher. If indeed money talks, this may be the first successful one. This is Tom Ayers reporting for Channel 8 News on the Move.
I found that all of the big metropolitan areas, as well as some of the rural counties, are having a great deal of difficulty with OEO. And the president of the National Association of Counties selected a 5-man committee and one of the members of his administrative staff to see if we could not prevail on Mr. Rumsfeld and others in Washington to give us a little more control over these programs. And of course, we had a good story to tell in Dallas, and I found it wasn't unusual throughout the nation. The harassment of our sheriff's office by the legal services and so much of the money going to employees, never reaching the poor.
I'm probably the oldest fashion professional around here, and I have a very long memory. A memory that goes back to 1947, when Christian Dior in Paris created a major fashion revolution at that time, which in a way is somewhat similar to the revolution that we're witnessing right now. People who have no more hippie ideas than a respectable bishop has are now beginning to wear the clothes of the youth movement. Now, we believe in one thing and one thing only, and that is the theory of becomingness. I think that any person who wears something simply because it's in fashion, it may look hideous on them, is just a plain fool. It's our contention that the only important thing is the matter of becoming.
Well, the girls are gone. That's the fashion show for today. But the memory of these fashions, which are going to be with us for a while, lingers. So does a little perfume. It's quite a show. The dresses are obviously going to be even longer still. Maybe a little knee here and there, but very little. And is that little bit of knee on its way out? Maybe next year we'll tell. This is Jim Mitchell, Channel 8 News on the Move at Neiman Marcus.
I have requested a hearing before the Regents. I did that several days ago, about 10 days ago, while I was still Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. And I received a letter from Mr. Irwin yesterday saying that I would be granted 10 minutes before the Board of Regents. I don't think it's possible within 10 minutes to discuss the kinds of issues that I asked to be heard on, and I'm hoping that the Board of Regents will allow me more than 10 minutes.
Certainly you're planning to cram the most important items into that 10 minutes. What would those be?
No, I'm not going to make any effort to speak to the Board of Regents if I'm allowed only 10 minutes. That's not a hearing. If the Board of Regents do not wish to hear from me, well, then I'm obviously in no position to force them to.
I understand your concern in this area stemmed from the fact you do have teenage children.
That's correct, Tommy. This became an obsession with me when they began coming home from school with stories that were the wildest beyond a man's dreams. Specifically that, it became obvious to me that anyone, regardless of age, 9, 10 years old on up, could buy dope and could buy it freely.
If I were an informant and wanted to get information to your organization, how would I go about it?
First and foremost, Tommy, your name would not be used, the information would not be used therein as evidence against you. We cannot. You're protected legally from that standpoint. It would merely be hearsay evidence and would have no value whatsoever.
We intend to funnel the complaints to the regular channels that are now being done by the police department itself. The only difference is that by having an image of the department, by not trusting many members of the police force, citizens do not use these channels. And we are wanting to help the citizens to use these channels by coming to persons and to an organization whom they do know and whom they do trust in order to help facilitate their getting to the regular channels and seeing that something is done about their grievances, either proving that it has merit or it doesn't have merit.
Why did you decide to be the director of Headstart?
My first reason was very simple and yet very profound. It was for God and the children. The greatest resource we have here in this world is children. They are the hope of the future. And Headstart offers just the wonderful opportunity of dealing with children and working with children for the future of our country. So it's God and the children that brought me here.
Your beginning of this organization or this thing would seem to be sort of an indictment against the police. Do you believe that they have been out of line and have not been brought into the law?
The word indictment, sir, comes from you. I believe that our stance must be one of cooperation, first with the citizen, and then with the police, who is the arm of the citizen. See, contrary to what most people believe, that the police department and all agencies of government are an extension of the citizen, of the people. And therefore, it is the people who must take the initiative if changes are to be made in their behalf. The longer we permit antagonisms to grow, the breach will widen, and a situation that none of us want may be the result.
3 and 5 are going to get will help alleviate some of the problems that their big brothers and sisters and fathers and mothers are having now that they've dropped out of school and such?
Yes, because I think a ceiling has been placed on the potential of these human beings to achieve, not just in a monetary way, but in a human way. And I think our youngsters are giving the opportunity to learn to learn. They're finding themselves as a person. They're finding that there's a world outside of their own little home, and that there's just nothing a 4-year-old can't be, an astronaut, a doctor, or anything. And we have to awake the possibilities for them. And I think once this is, then the steps to fulfill those possibilities, the education required, the self-discipline required, will be chosen by these children. It's because people had no vision very often that they let the opportunities go away.
Well, we believe that we've reached the end of this system of things, and the kingdom of God that everyone has known about for years because they say the Lord's Prayer is shortly going to rule the earth in righteousness. And that's our main work, is to preach the good news of God's kingdom. And Matthew 24:14 says, when the work of preaching the good news of God's kingdom is completed, then the end of this system of things will come.
How will this come about?
Well, the Bible describes it as a time when God will use fire to destroy this present system of things, not the earth we live on, but the wickedness on the earth. And it'll be replaced by a wonderful government, the kingdom of God, that will rule the earth in righteousness and bring peace and happiness to the earth forever.
Have you been able to interpret this to specifically mean the atomic bomb or the hydrogen bomb or anything of this sort?
No, because when the destruction at the Battle of Armageddon is spoken of in the Scriptures begins, it's going to be a destruction directly from the Almighty God, not an indiscriminate killing by dropping atomic or hydrogen bombs on people. But this is going to be a selective destruction of the wicked from God Himself and the preservation of the righteous.
We need to zone unincorporated areas because at the present time, no governmental unit has the authority to require basic necessities be met before an area is developed. Nobody has the authority to require zoning for purposes of sanitation, for purposes of public utilities. The result is that communities spring up just outside a city limit, which create health hazards, not only for the people who live there, but for those of us who live in incorporated areas close by. Health problems don't recognize city limits.
What can we do about it? What's the first step?
I think the first step is an approach that several of us in the legislature have tried the last two sessions unsuccessfully, and that is to grant the Commissioners Court of each county the authority to zone any area which is unincorporated and presently unregulated. The plan which I envision would give the primary responsibility to the Commissioners Court, acting in conjunction with an agency which is regional in scope, such as the Council of Governments. Our Commissioners Court here in Dallas County has always cooperated with the North Texas Council of Governments, and the other progressive counties in this area have too. So I would like to see the two tied in together.
I am Edwin C. Washington, Jr. I'm chairman of the Black Citizens for Justice, Law, and Order. The announcement I'm about to make is one that probably departs from what citizens are used to. Therefore, we are using this method to announce it. That beginning tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, which is Friday, that will be open to the citizens of Dallas a Citizens Police Complaint Center, to which a citizen may complain of any action that he deems to be improper or illegal committed by a police officer. In order to positively affect the climate between the general public and our policemen, to facilitate the investigations of police action by civilian and governmental agencies, and to make for wholesome citizen-peace officer relationships and interaction, and in order to provide an additional channel to the citizen wherein he can be sure beyond any doubt that his grievance has or has not merit, this organization has undertaken to open such an office. The office will be located at Grand Avenue and Oakland Avenue in the African Culture Shop. This is a temporary location, and we will probably be moving to other quarters in 3 or 4 months.
Mr. Washington, what's the basis of your dissatisfaction with the Community Relations Commission and the current efforts the police are making?
We believe that we, the citizens, as we are doing in Operation Crime Stop, where the citizens help in stopping crimes when they see it, must take a positive action to make the image better between the citizens and the police, and also at the same time to be sure that as we are doing this, that the action from individual policemen are not in the realm of harassment or undue pressure upon any citizen who has a complaint or who wants to make a complaint.
Don't you feel the establishment of this organization will antagonize the police department and the city administration?
I don't feel so. We have discussed this with the police department, and that we are cooperating with it, and to be specific.
All of the county officials throughout, every member of the board was particularly interested in bringing this thing to a quick conclusion, even if we had to try to prevail on Congress and to begin to make changes, because we realize that millions and millions of dollars are being poured down a rat hole. And of course, all of them are complaining, and as well as their constituents, about the enormous tax burden that the people are having to carry this day and time.
I do not question either the authority or the power of the Chancellor or the President of the University to remove me from office, summarily or otherwise. I do not question their power or their authority to bypass me in all discussions of the future of the College of Arts and Sciences, or to bring me into the consultation as late as the 11th of July. The wisdom of these matters is a different question, but I certainly have no reason to doubt that the Board, the Chancellor, and the President have the power and the authority. I do not come before the Board of Regents to discuss my personal situation or to ask any reversal of it. If the Regents wish to discuss my dismissal, I should only ask that I be privy to that discussion. The intellectual and emotional maturation of students.
The last 5 years, we've had 405 new plants come into this area. We've had about 437 expansions. These plants and new plants and the expansions have added about 92,000 jobs to our total labor force. But they've been 50 jobs here, 75 here, 100 here, and they haven't made the news media the big impact such as a GD announcement would. So we think that we have made progress in our jobs. There still isn't making light of the fact that the GD situation will affect numerous individuals.
We have more men coming in now, and they're jobs for these men. Maybe not at the money they've been making, but they're jobs. They're still jobs enough to go around as far as I see it.
Do they seem to want to stay here in the Fort Worth area, or are they looking otherwise?
Most of them want to stay here. Most of them expect to be hired back. That's one reason it's hard to place them on other jobs.
They think they'll go back to their job at GD or LTV or somewhere.
Sooner or later. And that's why an employer is hesitant to hire them at a lesser salary. Mm-hmm. Because if GD calls them back or if LT calls them back, they're going back for more money. You can't blame them for that.
Are these people skilled in highly specialized skills, or are they just common laborers, or who's coming to you?
Some of them are machinists and just general assembly workers. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about skilled shop workers there. Mm-hmm. Now you haven't asked me about the female applicants.
No, let's talk about the female applicants.
Okay. Well, any qualified applicant that walks through my door, I can place her.
We cannot deny the fact that it is turning from a seller's market into a buyer's market. This has happened over the last, I'd say, 18 months. So we are now seeing more homes come in and that the buyers are having a better selection. This could be alarming. At the same time, I think it's important to point out, for instance, we are having buyers in the market that are taking up these homes. It is averaging about 63 days to sell a home, whereas 3 years ago it was taking around 90 days to sell a home. So you have conflicting information, but it is a softened market. In the apartment industry, the typical barometer that you use is your occupancy, and there are some figures available that I think would be helpful. If we look to 6 months ago, we have dropped from about 89% occupancy down to 87%. And from a year ago, we are down from 93%. Not to get bogged down in figures, but this shows a drop of about 7%, 6 to 7%. Now, there's one factor I think we should point out here, that during these surveys that were taken in the past, there were many units under construction. For instance, a year ago, there were 7,000 under construction that were not taken into consideration. Today, there's about 3,000 under construction. So therefore, even though our occupancy has dropped, the overall absorption of apartment units have done quite well considering the supply and demand situation. If we want to talk briefly about the investment climate, I think it is a very good indicator because it shows what people are willing to do that has money to invest. Our interest in the Fort Worth area has very definitely increased in the last year to 18 months from outside capital seeking investment. Our firm specializes in investments, and so we have a pretty good feel on the ground floor of this. We think that this indication alone from the, as I say, outside capital money wanting to be invested in this area is an awful good indicator of what we can expect in the future.
We feel we're in a fluctuating period, but that we do have a very positive future for us. In construction, you can look around and you can see this growth and expansion and development that we're talking about. We've got our new City Hall under construction. New Block Square Texas Employment Commission building is under construction. The area is being demolished right now downtown for the 600 Houston Street Mall. The Continental National Bank's half-block multi-level parking garage will be under construction before the end of the year. We have two major projects that have been announced that will be underway shortly. That's the giant Fort Worth National Bank complex and the Miller's Mutual Insurance Group project. We anticipate to begin demolition on 5 square blocks south of the convention center that our Chamber Development Corporation has purchased within the next 30 days in Project Front Door. And mentioning the convention center, we have over $55 million in convention business booked for the next 5 years here. We're making a concerted emphasis on tourism and visitors to our community because these people don't use too many of our services. All they do is leave money in a community, and they have a tremendous effect on our economy. And all of these things put together with other activities that we have to promote our total economy, we feel is going to keep Fort Worth moving forward.
I think it would be a serious mistake if the Air Force, the Defense Department, did not continue this program. I recognize that it's had troubles in the past, but when you look at the facts, such as the fact that this airplane has had less accidents than any other plane in the 100 series, you can't help but be impressed. And when you talk to the people that fly the plane, and as I say, my son has done this, an active, off-the-record, non-congressman kind of interviews and just discussions with them, and then you talk to the fellows that I have that fly the plane, you can't help but be impressed with the capabilities of the aircraft. And then when you look at the overall military posture of this country, you can't help but be impressed with the ability that this plane has, whether it's in TAC or STAC, to be a useful aircraft for the future.
In February, a meeting of the St. Peter's Academy students' parents were called in an effort to determine both the needs and the wishes of the people most immediately involved. At the time, the Dawson Board pointed out that increasing costs and declining enrollment were making it increasingly difficult to maintain quality education in the high school that the children and the parents had a right to expect. They urged the high school, and I'd like to emphasize here, that the high school only is a portion of the operation that's under question or under consideration to be closed. Its present students will be enrolled in other Catholic schools in the city. I think we owe it to the public to tell them why we reached our decision. Now, I will go into all the details, just the main points. In order to continue the school at a minimum level of education quality would cost about $100,000 a year, considerably more than tuition would bring in. That figure would go up each year, and mind you, this is only day-to-day operation.